The 2-4-hour apocalypse, the day the world turned too fast. The emergency broadcast was a sound no one alive was supposed to hear, a high-pitched, oscillating frequency usually reserved for deep-sea seismic warnings, but at exactly 3 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time on a Tuesday, it blared across every communication network, from smartwatches to satellite dishes, cutting through every song, every news report, every sleep cycle. Its message was simple, relayed in a flat, synthesized voice: rotation velocity increment detected. Seek immediate shelter. Most people assumed it was a hoax. They were wrong. The event, later termed the Great Acceleration, was instantaneous. One moment, the Earth was spinning at its familiar pace, giving us 24 comfortable hours. The next, it was revolving 10 times faster, a 2-4-hour day. The immediate effects were not the fantastical chaos of people being flung into space gravity. The silent, relentless guardian prevented that. But the centrifugal force, now 10 times stronger at the equator, had a devastating, quieter impact. In the equatorial regions, places like Singapore, Quito, and Kenya, the shift was catastrophic. The oceans, liberated by the weaker relative gravity, surged towards the equator, creating a massive, permanent equatorial bulge. Coastal cities were instantly submerged by mile-high tsunamis that didn't recede. This was not a flood, it was a permanent, planetary reshaping. 90% of all coastal infrastructure vanished in the first 30 minutes. Survivors in these regions, now permanent residents of the new global ocean, faced the twin horrors of mass drowning and the perpetual, shrieking super hurricanes fueled by the drastically altered Coriolis effect. These storms, spinning with the new intensity, became permanent features of the new, compressed daily cycle. In the mid-latitudes, survival seemed possible, but the world was unrecognizable. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Dawn broke at 4 o'clock and sunset arrived at 6:24. People were afflicted by a new, continuous form of jet lag, a permanent disorientation that shattered sleep cycles and destroyed agriculture. Crops died within days, unable to cope with the relentless, compressed extremes of light and dark. The winds were the new predator. The atmosphere, dragged along by the faster surface, created unimaginable wind shear. Anything not bolted to bedrock was violently ripped away: cars, roofs, trees, leaving the surface scoured. But the true terror lay beneath the surface. The increased rotational stress put the Earth's crust under immense, unnatural pressure. Tectonic plates began to grind and shift with relentless vigor. The ensuing mega-earthquakes and supervolcanic eruptions were global, continuous, and deafening. Volcanic ash quickly choked the atmosphere, turning the perpetual 2-4-hour day into a murky, twilight nightmare. Humanity was not merely fighting the elements, we were fighting the planet itself, now a geological washing machine intent on self-destruction. The geopolitical landscape collapsed instantly. National borders became irrelevant as nations struggled to manage the continuous global disasters. The surviving world was divided into two regions, the drowned equator and the scorched mid-latitudes. Governments, realizing the impossibility of a normal 2-4-hour society, began secretly constructing deep, geothermal arc bunkers near the poles, where the rotational speed, and thus the centrifugal force, was lowest. Here, in a deep, insulated bunker beneath the Canadian Shield, Dr. Elias Vance, the chief planetary physicist, was tasked with stabilizing Earth's rotation. Vance, who had initially championed the theory of rotational kinetic energy capture for unlimited power, was haunted by the fact that he was one of the few who had theorized this cataclysm was even possible. His initial simulations, dismissed as alarmist science fiction, were now chilling reality. Vance worked on the principle that the cause of the acceleration was not external, but internal, a catastrophic, instantaneous shift in the angular momentum transfer between the liquid outer core and the rigid mantle. The outer core, for reasons unknown, had begun to spin uncontrollably fast, dragging the surface along with it. His solution, a series of synchronized, deep core energy bursts designed to create a countertorque and friction. It was a Hail Mary. Years bled into one another in the bunker's sterile, artificial light. The new 2-4-hour day was marked only by digital timers. Then, the day came. Vance initiated the counter-torque sequence. The Earth screamed. A final, continental splitting quake ripped across the globe. Then, silence. Slowly, miraculously, the rotational speed began to fall. Not back to 24 hours, but to a new, stable 12-hour day. A world reborn, but scarred. Humanity emerged from the bunkers and caves to find a changed planet. The equator was now a vast ocean, and the continents were misshapen, but they had survived. The twist. Decades later, Vance, an old man revered as the savior of humanity, finally finished the analysis of the acceleration's origin. It wasn't a natural shift, or even a technological failure. Deep in the seismic data, Vance found an anomaly, a perfectly synchronized, powerful electromagnetic pulse that originated not from Earth's core, but from a calculated point in the Oort cloud. The impulse was deliberately sent, powerful enough to disrupt the core mantle coupling. It was a weapon, precise and silent. But why? Vance then looked at the historical data from the initial 24-hour day. He realized the real twist. For centuries, humanity's greatest existential threat wasn't climate change or nuclear war. It was a predicted, slow, but inevitable decrease in Earth's spin due to tidal forces, leading to longer days and a weakened magnetic field, slowly stripping away the atmosphere. The 2-4-hour acceleration, catastrophic as it was, had an unexpected, massive side effect. The rapid, violent friction between the core and the mantle generated an instantaneous, colossal surge in the Earth's magnetic field, stabilizing it permanently against the slow tidal forces. The acceleration was not an attack. It was a cosmic intervention. An unknown, superior intelligence, seeing humanity's slow, inevitable doom, had performed a violent, planetary-scale cardiac arrest to save the patient. The acceleration, the tsunamis, the earthquakes, they were the necessary, brutal side effects of an emergency planetary stabilization procedure performed by a benevolent but uncompromising galactic doctor. Vance stared at the data. The apocalypse he had survived was, in fact, the most violent, glorious act of salvation in human history. The true Uncharted Theory was that we were never alone, and our doom was averted by a catastrophe we couldn't comprehend.